Welcome to Biblical Theology Today. I wanted to continue this series on biblical theological investigation into the sons of God and the daughters of Adam. And often people these days want to argue for the view that it's angels and women. The argument's often made that Jude has that view, and we'll look at that. But before we do, I wanted just to point out something in the immediate context when you look at chapter 5. So in chapter 5, it says, Ze Sefer Toledo. This is the book of the Toledo. There are 13 of these in the Ze Toledo, 13 of those in the Old Testament, one in the New. The Biblos Genesos, of course, Matthew 1 starting that way. But what I want to point out is this beginning of this. This is the generations of, this is the book of the Toledoth of Adam. Notice carefully, it says, in the day God created Adam, bid demuth, in the image of God, he made him. So we've got Adam being made in the image of Elohim. You say, well, what does that have to do with anything in our text? Well, look at verse 3. And Adam lived 30 years and 100 years, and he begot, and look at this, in his likeness. And you may be able to tell that this is the exact phrase. So Adam lived and begot a son in his likeness according to his image. Well, obviously, his son, Seth, is the son of Adam because Adam begot in his likeness. Well, if you're using the same exact word in the same phrase, bet demuth, and of course, this part is just how you say his in Hebrew. If Adam is begetting Seth in his likeness and Seth is his son, would not God creating Adam in his likeness make Adam the son of Elohim? And of course, if we're willing to listen to clear teaching in the New Testament, when you look at the genealogy, that's exactly what we have here. Son of Seth, son of Noah, son of God. And so the same relationship that Adam has to Seth, God has to Adam. Well, if Adam is the father of Seth, doesn't that make God the father of Adam? In the text, the sons of God are those who are calling on God for help, and the sons of Adam are those who are refusing. Of course, Adam fathers both lines. So the line that relies on self, seventh one down, is Lamech. He has a beautiful daughter. She's the only daughter listed in that genealogy. When you compare what her name means, of course, if we look, Here's Lamech, kind of the epitome of the evil that happens when people refuse. He's the first polygamist. He's the first wife abuser. He's threatening his wives, polygamist, but very wealthy, and he has very talented offspring. Jabal and Jubal, kind of mass farming, music, Tubal Cain, the one who's figuring out how to make sharpened instruments. But all those pale in comparison in terms of intrigue, in that you end with this woman, Naamah, and she has these three extraordinary brothers, and you ask, well, what's her virtue? And we've seen before that her name means something like the lovely one or something like that. Well, we have these people calling on the name of the Lord. Seth is begotten in the likeness. Clearly, he's the son of Adam. And we go down in the genealogy. People are calling on the name of the Lord for help. And you think that's great. They're worshiping God. Even though evil is becoming great, no problem. People are following God. They're asking God for help. But then we have this statement that the Adam began to be great on the faces of the Adamah, and daughters were born to them. So this is Ha-Adam, is kind of all mankind. And it says, the sons of Elohim saw the Banot Ha-Adam. Well, if you've been given two genealogies and the genealogy ends in a girl, and her name means the lovely one, isn't it easy to suppose that some from the line of Seth intermarried? And once you make that assumption, it's easy to see that Methuselah married Naamah, and they named their kid after her dad. And God's saying, that's it. I know how this plays out. When there's intermarriage with pagan women, the women are going to turn the hearts away. And of course, that's the very temptation facing the first audience who heard Genesis in the plains of Moab. It's the advice that Balaam gives. He says, I can't curse, but if you find the most beautiful pagan women, they'll turn the hearts of Israel away, and they'll become idolaters, and then you can win. This is integral to the story, and we've seen before that there's only one Son of God in the text who can marry a daughter of Adam, and his solution is to give her a new heart and enable her to walk in the ways of God. That makes very good sense in the context, in the two chapters, in the Pentateuch as a whole, in the Old Testament as a whole. The other view, you have people calling on the name of the Lord for help. So those in Seth's line, that's where the genealogies end in chapter 4. They began to call on the name of the Lord. This is a standard phrase for worshiping God. It's what Abraham does. Everyone calls on the name of the Lord. The Lord even demonstrates this to Moses. But if the story in 6 is angels procreating with women, then you have people asking God for help, and God says, oh, that's it. Some angels slept with a woman. I'm just going to wipe everybody out. That doesn't make any sense in the story. It doesn't square with anything else in the Pentateuch. In fact, at this point in the story, we don't even know there are angels, but we do know that there are people who are calling on the name of the Lord for help. And if we read it, as the Hebrew idiom, take for themselves wives from, it isn't, you don't have to just say angels slept with women. You have to explain how they marry women. That's the idiom, took for themselves wives from. Everywhere in the Pentateuch, as we've seen in a previous video, that's used of God's people intermarrying with pagans. And it's often, hey, don't take for yourselves wives from. That's exactly what's happening here. It makes perfect sense. If the view of Augustine, Joyce of Africanus, Calvin, I think Luther, Jonathan Edwards, all side. And so for scholars to come along and make it seem like somehow this is a minority view or an indefensible view, it's just not true. So be a Berean. Look through the data yourself and see what you decide, and I'll look forward to talking to you next time.